Don in London, hello. April 16th, all my videos about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol. My behaviour equally addictive around people, places and things. Being with the right people, in the right place, doing the right things. Trying to fit in and be included. Live life to the full. And stand on my own 2 feet, put on a brave face, and when life is difficult, get on with it. And part of what I used to do when life was difficult, or even when life was going really well, I used to have a drink to celebrate, and it took the edge off. I suppose anxiety, stress, you name it, but it relaxed me, and as the relaxing process went on, I didn't realise just how dependent I was becoming on a substance and then the behaviour associated with it. In truth, I didn't know how to be sober and stay sober for any length of period because I relied upon alcohol. So alcohol did change the way I looked at the world. It was there to save me when all else failed, and it was there for me to celebrate when everything was right. So these days, having got to a place where not only did I depend on it, then became addicted, I prefer to be sober one day at a time. So it's some years since I had a drink, but that's courtesy of help and not of my own self-will, because I tried self-will to stop drinking when I became addicted, but it took a long time to get there. I had to go through a process of being ignorant about my condition through to denial about my condition, and then in anger, resentment, keep on drinking because there was just seemed no way to stop or for life to improve ever again. And then I got to that jumping off point, as it's called, where I could either expire and say, right, I've had enough, I'll drink myself to death, or in my case I realised I had so many close shaves that life, even though it was desperately horrible, it didn't seem that it could get any worse. And at that point I thought, well, if I can't do it on my own, then I do need help to do this. So I asked for help. I asked for medical help, and they told me, we need to dry you out and then see if you can find a way with help to be sober. And it turned out that the Fellowship of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, was the place where I would learn how to be sober one day at a time. So a one-day program, 24/7, where I don't drink, and the days have accumulated into weeks, months and years. And all I know is, if I keep myself living in the day, I don't go back and rake up the past, and I don't look too far forwards to impossible dreams or impossible possibilities about life. Given my current life situation, today works. And it doesn't mean it's going to be all good. It's like any day. You can have good parts and bad parts, or they're all merging into one. But at least I know my feelings fit the experience I'm having. So I don't drag in old feelings about here we go again, and I don't say that something like this, I don't deserve what's happening to me. It's just that I happen to be in this place at this time and these things are happening. So good or bad, that's how life is. Life on life's terms. So AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, I don't speak for it, never can, never will. Simply it's full of unique, authentic people who develop their freedom of choice daily, and they speak where they will, as they choose. And that's part of what fellowship is all about. Freedom of choice, freedom to be unique, authentic, and to learn sobriety so the rest of life can happen. So I do put sobriety first, so that I know how I can be included, learn how to love and be loved back unconditionally, and keep on getting wisdom from other people. So how does AA work in my life? Well, I go to meetings of the fellowship, different groups, of which there are over 700 in London, UK, so I'm very fortunate. And my preference was to stay in London. I was invited to leave London for a while, but it seemed to me, just in my case, I would be better off close to all the facilities for sobriety and medical attention. So AA works in my life by going to meetings. What I see is what I get. It's not about being fixed and a promotion of an idea here. I'm suggesting what you see is what you get in fellowship. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. Sometimes we like it, sometimes it's horrible. Sometimes we find people we like, and sometimes we find people who we dislike, and they're not good friend material. And that's like all life, normal life. Some people we like, some people we don't like. But we learn how to tolerate each other, and the reason why we can do that is really down to the AA preamble, which is on this little card here. And it outlines everything that AA is. And I share it near the beginning of these videos because it puts me back on track about how I conduct myself in fellowship. So this is what it says. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. So people sharing their experience, strength and hope is their truth of now, what's happened, what's happening, and how we feel about it. So we can keep in touch with reality. And the most important point is, it's their experience, strength and hope, not some sort of coded message which is everything that AA is. It's not trying to inculcate you into some sort of cult. It's about learning to be yourself and listen to other people's and their experiences. It goes on to say, the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. But every single person in AA is affiliated in some way or other to outside institutions, communities, societies, and faiths and beliefs. So it's a very broad church, if you like. Broad church in the sense that anybody can come in if they have a desire to be sober, and they can say what they like about how their sobriety is going. And we try not to push our own beliefs on other people which are separate to sobriety. So AA is for sobriety, and every sort of person you can imagine in the world, maybe they are represented in the rooms of AA or the meetings of AA. So we get to know people from different and wide, diverse backgrounds. We don't always like what they have to say. That's good. It means we're free-thinking individuals, and the whole point of sobriety is to be a free-thinking individual with freedom of choice, given where life is today. It goes on to say, our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And that was pretty much the starting point, if you like, of every meeting you'll find when you go to any AA fellowship meeting in the world. Or if they don't use the preamble, they're probably not actually an AA meeting, or there may be something like an AA meeting. But the important point for me is, especially as these videos go out all over the place, a lot of people will say who don't like AA for the simple reason that they don't like the fact that they need to stop drinking. They don't like the fact that there may be a solution which requires a bit of honesty. They don't like the fact that maybe they have to join in with something else to get support. But if they band together and knock AA, they're forming their own community, and good, because maybe that'll keep you sober. It's the many voices, always. It's the experience of the many that helps me get sober. And it's the experience of the many inside and outside fellowship, equally. That is, people inside fellowship from all walks of life, and people outside the fellowship from all walks of life, which keeps me sober on a daily basis, because I'm learning what the truth is from them. So rather than run on my own personal opinion or my own self-will, willpower, in order to retain a hold on this world, or try and hold this world in the way I want it, or make it the way I think it ought to be, I actually feel like I can join in and just be equal to anybody else. So part of the program has helped me with the aid of being humble, or having humility to keep on learning, because life is one big learning lesson. Sometimes it's very painful and sometimes it's very joyous, but we're learning how to be in society, or we get left behind and sidelined, and in my case, in a bar, in a pub, in my own head, which is not a safe place to be for me, on my own, because it gets distorted without input. So if I can go to a fellowship where people speak their minds and share their truth, I'm always being informed, and I can learn and put things into practice and see if they work in life. And the fellowship has a 12-step program, personal to each individual, 12 steps to learn and live. And you can take it or leave it. You can do it whichever way you like. And then there are 12 traditions which hold the fellowship together in unity, service and recovery. So for me, the 12 steps. Being 12 steps, there are 12 months, and in all the literature, or some of the literature, it focuses on one step a month. And April's about step 4, and it reads exactly as: made a searching, fearless, moral inventory of ourselves. Or in other words, a self-appraisal. And it's around our feelings and how we've dealt with life. What made us angry, what made us resentful. And I was just looking in this book called the 12 and 12, or 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. And on page 45 of this particular edition, it says at the bottom of the page, and then goes on to page 46, alcoholics especially should be able to see that instinct, run wild in themselves, is the underlying cause of their destructive drinking. We have drunk to drown feelings of fear, frustration and depression. We have drunk to escape the guilt of passions, and then have drunk again to make more passions possible. We have drunk for vain glory, that we might the more enjoy foolish dreams of pomp and power. This perverse soul sickness is not pleasant to look upon. Instincts on rampage balk at investigation. The minute we make a serious attempt to probe them, we are liable to suffer severe reactions. And that makes me smile when I say it at the end. Severe reactions to looking at myself and my drinking career and the behaviour associated with it. Part of step 4 is saying we are given natural given instincts, but if they're out of balance and at extremes, as it was for me with alcohol, then I'm out of balance at extremes. Sometimes we do have extremes of behaviour because we're provoked in some way. But maybe for the alcoholic we cannot actually live with these extremes because it just keeps us drinking, and we drink our way into problems, and then we think we can drink our way out of problems. So when it says alcoholics especially should be able to see that instinct run wild in themselves is the underlying cause of their destructive drinking, it says destructive drinking, not just drinking. So when we are at extremes of behaviour, when we're the life and soul of the party, or a miserable old git lying at home in bed with a big bottle of vodka, those are extremes of behaviour. And to keep on doing it day after day after day, 24/7, because we just can't stop, is killing us. Well, it was killing me for sure, which is why I spent some time in intensive care, more than once. We have drunk to drown our feelings of fear, frustration and depression. And I realise these days that I'm less fearful, I have less frustrations in my life because I'm realistic. And depression, well, I do have clinical depression, but it goes through phases, and it's medically helped by those professionals who are able to deal with it. Not me. I didn't realise I had clinical depression until I was completely assessed. So fear, frustration and depression are underlying causes which keep us drinking. We have drunk to escape the guilt of passions, in other words, to fall in love and then fall out of love. We have drunk for vainglory, that is, celebrating successes which cannot be repeated, or weren't actually successes at all, that we might more enjoy the foolish dreams of pomp and power. And indeed, we like to be powerful in our own lives. And what I've learned most of all is it's great to be powerful over my choices. Freedom of choice, to have the power to make freedom of choice, and check it out with other people to see if it's realistic. This perverse soul sickness, and that's where it's talking probably about not being able to deal with reality, The spiritual sickness is not being able to cope. So if our emotions are distorted and we're not able to cope with reality, we use drink to, I suppose, drink away our problems or just wash it all away. But the problem is, it's still there. Then instincts on rampage, bulk at investigation. Who wants to look at everything that's gone wrong because of drinking? Well, the alcoholic doesn't. And certainly you don't want to even come into fellowship, because it's just the wrong place to be. It's about not drinking, when drinking has been our life. The minute we make a serious attempt to probe them, we are liable to suffer severe reactions. And I had a severe reaction, which was, I don't want to do this. And if I can avoid telling people in the 5th step, which I'll cover in next month, what am I going to do? Well, I can't hide away and bury them, because they'll keep going round in my mind until I let them out. And we find people we can talk to and trust, and they may be in fellowship or outside it. Excuse me, I've gone on a bit. But that was important to me. This book, Daily Reflections, for April 16th says, anger, a dubious luxury. And of course we all get angry in our own heads, but do we express it or do we suppress it? If we were to live, we had to be free of anger. The grouch and the brainstorm were not for us. They may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for alcoholics these things are poison. So anger, if we get angry, we can build it up into big mountain falls and bring in every old experience which was negative, and anger can chew us up and cause relapse. It goes on to say, dubious luxury. How often have I remembered those words? It's not just anger that's best left to non-alcoholics. I built a list including justifiable resentment, self-pity, judgmentalism, self-righteousness, false pride and false humility. I'm always surprised to read the actual quote. So well have the principles of the program been drummed into me that I keep thinking all of these defects are listed too. Thank God I can't afford them, or I surely would indulge in them. And of course, anger and resentment are the #1 killers, really, of sobriety. Because if we're going round and round in anger and not being able to do anything about it, and why are we angry anyway? What was our part in it? And if we can clear the decks of what was our part in it, it's not going to make it right or wrong. It's just going to tell us and inform us why we got into that state. So, do I want to repeat it by going, here we go again, on something else? Actually, if I'm patient with myself and patient with other people, anger is less often. But sometimes people do anger us and abuse us, and they can do it in a very jokey way. And it can be very humiliating, because behind the joke is a barb of nastiness. And somebody wrote to me in recent times and said, what do I do about people who continually undermine me with their jokes? And there is a word I use if I need to, and I'll say it very quickly so hopefully I don't get knocked off the air for it. But it's a complete word in all its glory, and includes every single good Anglo-Saxon word. And it goes like this. It's fuck off you cunty bollock bastard. And if they don't, I'll say it again, slower, so they can hear it. But that's resentment in there. I can feel it in myself when I said it. There's a resentment in there, which is not good. But we're not going to like everybody, as I said at the beginning. And some people will just get on our case because they don't even understand that they're abusive in their behaviour. So we can be assertive and say, I like you, which may be a lie actually, just as having said it. I like you as a person, but when you behave like this and say these things, it's really undermining me. Please stop it. That's being assertive. And if we want empathy, it's how are we feeling today? Why and what can we do? But it won't always work, because some people are not for changing. So we don't need them in our lives, and if we can, we need let go. We are not here to change other people to our point of view, and that's where people in the fellowship start to realise that we can rub along together in a diverse way, and we're not going to like everybody, and we are going to like somebody or some people. It's just the way it is. In As Bill Sees It, co-founder, readings, I've been covering the ones all about inventorying, or doing the step 4 and the step 10. If step 4 is the big moral fearless inventory, being fearless, and then step 10 is doing what is disturbing me today. Actually, nothing's disturbing me so far, except my own thoughts of retribution. Page 213, complete the house cleaning. Time after time, newcomers have tried to keep to themselves shoddy facts about their lives, which is in the inventory, trying to avoid the humbling experience of the 5th step, which is sharing it with another human being. It doesn't have to be somebody in AA, by the way. You can be your closest confidant, or a complete stranger, or a priest who you're never going to see again. The point is to get it out of us and share it. They have turned to easier methods. Almost invariably they got drunk. Having persevered with the rest of the program, they wondered why they fell. So if we don't uncover our deepest, darkest secrets and share them, in some way or other in a confession style, in order to get humility, we'll chew on those old things, and we'll always try and cover them up. Yes, I tried that. It didn't work. It didn't make me go and drink. It just made me very unhappy for a long time. Although my behaviour was like being drunk. They call it being a dry drunk. We think the reason is that they never completed their housekeeping or house cleaning. They took inventory all right, but hung on to some of the worst items in stock. They only thought they had lost their egoism and fear. They only thought they had humbled themselves, but they had not learned enough of humility, fearlessness and honesty, in the sense we find it necessary, until they told someone else their entire story. So the gift is, it's like if you went to a counsellor and didn't share half of what was getting under your skin, or going to a psychiatrist and you're in abject misery and clinically depressed, and they ask you, how are you? You say, fine. It's like when I go to the doctors often, my adrenaline goes up and I feel better for the experience of getting out to the doctors. So I forget what's wrong with me. These things happen. It's normal human behaviour, but the reason why we do a step 4 is simply that we write it all down and then share it, as we choose, with the person inside or outside, fellowship, family, community, or wherever it happens to be. Wherever we choose is the right place. And I chose somebody who couldn't speak English too well, but they certainly could understand it, I found out later, which is good, because I learned humility, and it made me laugh at myself, because most of whatever I've done, if it's been described somewhere, it's been done a million times. So I'm not too far from being a human being like everybody else, except that every human being is unique and authentic. I'm on the unique, authentic kick today, because that's what life is all about, being ourselves and learning what we can be and what we can't be. The Serenity Prayer helps me at any time. It's just a meditation to God, or to good conscience, or a power greater than yourself, which I call truth, the absolute truth of now, not my opinion. Love, the ability to love and be loved back, and the wisdom of others, truth, love and wisdom of others. That's my higher power, and I can't define God. Too big, too vast. To God, or good conscience, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. For me is, and always, just for today. Due to the volcanic action in Iceland, and one or two people drilling holes in walls. But anyway, my video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol, my behaviour, equally addictive to, or addicted to, people, places, things, work, relationships, trying to do the best I could, and collecting, and trying to fill a gap inside, which was always deep, and it felt empty. And I didn't realise the gap inside, or the emptiness, was there for a good reason. It was to fill with good things, not necessarily wants, but maybe just needs. Need to be loved, to be able to love back, and to be useful, and to be content, and find serenity on a daily basis, whatever that might be, or just to be happy or sad as life offers. But for some reason, at an early age, I was fearful of life, and that first drink did take the edge off. I remembered it from when I was a child, and then in my teenage years I started drinking, and I kept company with those who drank continuously and copiously, lots and lots. And I guess my father was a good influence, and he never found recovery, or maybe he did, just for the last few months of his life. But that's another story, and it's not mine. But well, yes, it is my story. I'm a chip off the old block. Anyway, 35 years later, I did get clarity. I did understand that I could not beat addiction using self-will. Self-will turns to self-obsession, turns to self-will obsessively running riot, trying to control everything and not able to control a thing. So these days, it's about a bit of let-go process, letting go the obsession of self-will, and finding how to be sober and make good choices on a daily basis. So what helps me? Family, friends, community, without a doubt. And a fellowship, which I talk about, and I belong to, and that fellowship is Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't speak for it, never can, never will, never want to. AA is full of unique, authentic people with one similarity, a desire to stop drinking and stay stopped, if possible, a day at a time, and then share experience, strength and hope. So I share my experience, strength and hope because it feels right to do so, and to share how AA helps me in my daily doings or my daily life, and know that it's okay to do that, and that for a lot of people it remains anonymous because it provides sanctuary, like a doctor, psychiatrist, counsellor. It's a place to go, find sanctuary, to find the truth of who we are, and tell the truth. So the whole program is based on truth, openness, honesty, and willingness to keep on learning life sober. So how does AA help me? Well, there's a preamble or statement of intent about AA, and it reads like this. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And how on earth do we get to sober living? Well, I just read from a little handy card here, which you can't see too well. No, it won't. Yes, just about. And that's the AA preamble. But inside this little card, it's got two sets of information: 12 steps of AA, 12 traditions of AA. 12 steps, stop us committing suicide, get healthy. 12 traditions about not committing homicide, not killing each other, and learning how to live life again. So, principles, traditions, understanding, it's all suggestions. It's not rules. It's not rules about anything, because if you try and pin an alcoholic down and make them do something, the inside person, no matter what, will retaliate. But if we're not told to do anything, and we can just make simple choices in the day about letting go, making those choices based on truth, trying to deal with our emotions as they're happening, we have a fighting chance. Or rather, not even a fighting chance. An accepting opportunity of making the right choice in what is going on. And in this book, Daily Reflections, I've just realised it's in black and white. Sorry about that. In this book it covers the 12 steps, one a month, and one page a day, offering a reading to help us with our recovery, to meditate or reflect on something useful to us. And April is all about doing, it talks and it doesn't talk, it shares about doing step 4, which is the fearless moral inventory, the personal audit or appraisal of what we've done, when, and what's made life difficult, or overly difficult. And number one is drinking, of course, and then our feelings and emotions out on extremes. And when they're on extremes, they're not very helpful, and often they're called defects of character, out of balance, out of sorts, and most often caused by resentments and anger. So April 16th, it talks about anger, a dubious luxury, and it reads like this. If we were to live, we had to be free of anger. The grouch and brainstorm are not for us. They may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for alcoholics, these things are poison. Dubious luxury. How often have I remembered those words? It's not just anger that's best left to non-alcoholics. I built a list including justifiable resentments, self-pity, judgmentalism, self-righteousness, false pride, and false humility. I'm always surprised to read the actual quote. So well have the principles of the program been drummed into me that I keep thinking all of these defects are listed too. Thank God I cannot afford them, or I surely would indulge in them. And, anger and rage. I was just hearing something about road rage on the news. It comes from feeling less than, that somebody is getting something which we want, which is freedom, often, to make our choices and be first or be there, or have the best opportunity. And sometimes we need to settle into what is the right opportunity and the right choice in the moment. It's not always about getting past the post first. It's about the journey. We can all end up at the same finishing point in life, which is the ending. But it's the way we deal with life on a daily basis which helps. So step 4, the moral inventory, is very helpful. It's not to be feared either. It's a fearless inventory. So there's a piece in the 12 by 12 which just struck me this morning, all about step 4. Also of importance for most alcoholics are questions they must ask about their behaviour respecting financial and emotional security. In these areas, fear, greed, possessiveness and pride too have often done their worst. Surveying his business or employment record, almost any alcoholic can ask questions like these. In addition to my drinking problem, what character defects contributed to my financial instability? Did fear and inferiority about my fitness for my job destroy my confidence and fill me with conflict? Did I try to cover up those feelings of inadequacy by bluffing, cheating, lying, or evading responsibility, or by griping that others failed to recognise my truly exceptional abilities? Did I overvalue myself and play the big shot? Did I have such unprincipled ambition that I double-crossed and undercut my associates? Was I extravagant? Did I recklessly borrow money, caring little whether it was repaid or not? Was I a pinch penny, refusing to support my family properly? Did I cut corners financially? What about the quick money deals, the stock market and the races? And that applies to many things in life, not just financial. Maybe I'll talk about emotional and romantic on another day. Anyway, what helps me on a daily basis when things are going a bit up and down, or just happy, is the serenity prayer to acceptance. To God or good conscience, as you choose. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference for me is just for today. Substance or behaviour, and I'm a bit late. It's gone 11 o'clock, and I've had 1 or 2 calls helping, just supporting actually somebody who's been in the fellowship and is no longer in the fellowship and is doing research and some more convincing about what sort of life to have. So what does it remind me of? My addiction, substance, alcohol, my behaviour. I guess always trying to be perfect and never so, and always feeling less than others maybe. I had a brittle ego and not very much self-esteem, so a lot of my life was driven by fear, 1,000 forms of fear, all in my imagination normally, but often some proved to be well-founded. Not everybody in life will like us, and some people will completely detest us because of what we stand for or how we are. So these days I learn how to be me on a daily basis, be open, honest and willing to let life happen as it may, and not try and control everything. What I've learned most in fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous is that I'm powerless over people, places and things, which is the first step in the program. And when I don't try and control anything, and let things happen, let life happen. Life is more interesting, and it's more varied, and it's more open. The more I control it, the more I fasten myself down to the prison, my intellectual prison and outlook. These days I have more of an emotional outlook which helps me connect and be included rather than excluding people who I could not trust because I could not trust myself. So what's going on for me? I feel okay this morning. Rain till Sunday. And what can I do about that? Nothing. Well, I can go to meetings and be a part of. I think the weather does impact on me and my emotional well-being as much as anything. But these days I just don't drink a day at a time, which is a good starting point. And the fellowship which helps me, Alcoholics Anonymous, there is a preamble shared here in London at the beginning of every meeting I've been to. And it goes like this. Oh, and there are 700 meetings in London or thereabouts every week. So 700 times this is said in different places, and once a day on here with me. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And what we do to try and encourage newcomers is make suggestions. There are 12 suggestions of an action program, or 12 steps of action, to change our attitude and behaviour. And those 12 steps can be lived in a day. It might take a bit of homework to get there, but once we've got the homework done, then we can live in each day and make the best of what we have. So experience is our history, strength is where we are today, and hope is to make the best of this day sober, just one day at a time. A one-day program for recovery. So if we try and make our recovery longer and imagine what it would be like in 20 years' time, we may not get there because we are overstepping where we have some choices. So we can't wish it so, but we can certainly work towards making some progress, and never perfect, on a daily basis. What else do I share here? The Daily Reflections book, one page per day, to give some perspective on my outlook in the morning. And I often use As Bill Sees It as well, so that it illustrates what is going on and how I make use of it. So for today, in the Daily Reflections, April, Step 4, all about the fearless moral inventory, which is doing a self-appraisal of our assets and our liabilities. It says here, anger, a dubious luxury. And I was just talking to somebody, and they're very angry about life generally and the credit crunch and what it's doing to them. So, we need to be realistic in all of this. It's not about a fantasy of recovery, it's about real recovery and seeing reality as it is. And here we go, April 16th, anger, a dubious luxury. If we were to live, we had to be free of anger. The grouch and the brainstorm were not for us. They may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for alcoholics these things are poison. And that comes from AA's Big Book, page 66. Probably the 4th edition, maybe, I don't know, I'll have to check. But it goes on to say, dubious luxury. How often have I remembered those words? It's not just anger that's best left to non-alcoholics. I built a list including justifiable resentment, self-pity, judgmentalism, self-righteousness, false pride and false humility. I'm always surprised to read the actual quote. So well have the principles of the program been drummed into me that I keep thinking all of those defects are listed too. Thank God, or in good conscience, I can't afford them, or I surely would indulge in them. And when it says the list, justifiable resentment, self-pity, judgmentalism, self-righteousness, false pride and false humility, is often about blaming other people. And some things we have in our lives are beyond our control. And we can feel angry, frustrated, piteous or whatever for a period of time because we're just human. But the progression into stop blaming ourselves, stop blaming other people, and just take it on the chin when some things are very difficult, and we don't have an answer, is probably the best policy. And share it and express it and get it out there. Get it out of ourselves onto paper, or sharing it with another human being. And as Bill sees it today, this one, just doing them in linear order, so not necessarily about the fourth step in the fearless moral inventory. It says here, clearing a channel. During the day we can pause where situations must be met and decisions made, and renew the simple request, thy will, not mine, be done. And it's all about handing it over at this, it's all letting go. If at these points our emotional disturbance happens to be great, we will more surely keep our balance, provided we remember and repeat to ourselves a particular prayer or phrase that has appealed to us in our reading or meditation. Just saying it over and over will often enable us to clear a channel choked up with anger, fear, frustration or misunderstanding, and permit us to return to the surest help of all, our search for God's will or good conscience, not our own in the moment of stress. And when it says there, just saying it over and over will often enable us to clear a channel choked up with anger, fear, frustration or misunderstanding. If we deal with things on a daily basis, and we get to tell the truth and be open, honest and willing to accept where things are, and sometimes accept that we've been made to feel angry, frustrated and not quite ourselves, and then be able to talk it through or share it and get some perspective, we're on a better wicket, if you like, for living through this day. And in the past, I know what drove me mad was fear of my imagination. I imagined the worst often, and then I felt, what am I going to do about that? And the answer was I was still as powerless, but what I used to do to treat myself was a large amount of alcohol, just to take the edge off. Take the edge off my emotional, physical understanding or being, in order that I could obliterate or find oblivion. And then I guess what happened? In the end I woke up fearful again, and unable to make sense or, I guess, make better choices. So as I went through my life, I probably did a lot of saying yes to things which were difficult and hard to do, involved lots of hard work, and I did it because I didn't know how to say no. And Gandhi said something, actually. He said, an emphatic no is better than a half-hearted yes. So when we are asked to do something, or somebody volunteers us for an action or activity, an emphatic no, saying, I feel I don't want to do that, and in fact emphatically I don't want to do that, it's okay, because we are allowed to have our choices simply in the day. But coming back to that phrase of something which can help us to make ourselves more balanced in the moment of now, I do use the Serenity Prayer, and it's to the God of your understanding or my understanding, or to good conscience, or to nature and providence, and it goes like this: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and simply learn and know. I've lost it. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I stumbled, but I'm back up on my feet now. Don in London, good morning, and it's just coming up to 8 o'clock on April the 16th, 2008, Wednesday morning, and as opposed to yesterday, it's a bit cloudy this morning. We've had a lot of rain overnight, and it's been an interesting 24 hours. I saw my mother yesterday, and we're still finding out more about my father's mother. We'd never known who she was until recently, and her family. And my dad had to be adopted. He was an orphan, as we thought, and his mother was of an age and place where it was impossible for her to look after him, and that was because of the social mores, or the social values of the time. And he was a very, very lucky person to actually make it along in his childhood. He was very, very ill as a baby. And we only find these things out if we go digging, and now we're allowed to. There are no embargoes. We find out where people come from and a bit more about family history. And the family that he would have had, and it was a very nice family actually, from what we can see. And it makes me reflect on things in the past. And one of the things in the AA program is that we do take account of what we know and understand from years gone by. And I'm glad that I've got some photos to scan and then share with the rest of the family about how and where my father came from. And he died in 1991, and 1991 for me was a very, very difficult year. I discovered in March that year that he was not well, and suggested he went to see his doctor. And within no time at all, we knew he was going to die within about 6 to 8 weeks. And at the same time, I was absolutely in love with somebody who had to leave me. She had to leave me in order to find herself. And in the process of trying to find herself, she found herself in another relationship in LA, in America, where I went to see her, and she was already expecting a baby. So I can remember me and my outlook at the time was very depressed and anxious, wanting to stop the process of time probably, so that I could actually get to control my life and the people in it again, and that my father wouldn't die, and that my girl at the time would come back to me. And I wanted it all put back. I wanted everything put back where love counted. And of course you can't. And my way of coping was not very good. I drank more and drank more. I kept on drinking to blot out the pain of my father's oncoming death, and the fact that my girlfriend of then, who I considered my partner, could not come back to me. And as I was a defiant, stubborn so-and-so, so was she. And there's unresounding qualities for people to get on if they have different outlooks and different directions to go in. So you can love somebody and they can still go off and do what they need to and leave us feeling abandoned. And you know, we sometimes abandon ourselves, and I think during that year I certainly abandoned me, because life was just too painful. So that came into a share I did last night. I was invited to do a share at Pond Place, which is the alternative meeting now for the Radnor Walk meeting, which had to close down as that building is now up for sale and will be sold on for redevelopment. So we get changes in AA all the time, and on a daily basis I change, and sometimes I'm hit and struck by historical facts of my life, and where drinking took off into another dimension. Even if it wasn't forever, it certainly gave me a taste for oblivion, more oblivion from life, and how to get that oblivion, and just put up the boundaries so that on the outside I looked all right, so nobody would go digging inside. And this is what I shared actually last night, that you know, with the death of my father in 1 month, and the realization that the relationship I had was never ever going to be mended with my partner, I didn't know what to do. And all I did was put all my energy into work. I worked as hard as I could in order that I could get some self-esteem, in order that I could keep on going until I found some other alternative way of dealing with life. And the trouble is, even though I had all the skills and understanding, or the skill of knowing a process of grief, you can't do grief until you really, really have to do it. Knowing and understanding what you're going through helps to an extent, but you cannot escape the reality of pain. And I wasn't very good at it, so I drank away my pain, and it kept coming back day after day after day. And I think what it taught me, eventually when I had a nervous breakdown some years later, when I was ostensibly on the top of my game at work, I was so exhausted and traumatized, I had no way of dealing with even small little dips in my life, or even worse, a big challenge at work which I couldn't face. And the challenge at work I couldn't face was the ongoing lies and deceits of an organisation in transition. And no matter how much we have principles of openness, honesty, willingness to do the right thing, have a belief in fair dealing, when we encounter great big obstacles it can be very difficult. Anyway, Practicing the Power of Now, a book which I'm starting to enjoy, and I'm only reading little bits at a time. because if I try and read it all at one go, I'll miss the point about how to practice the power of now. It's not about theory for me anymore, it's about actually living. And it says here, make it a habit to ask yourself, what's going on inside me at this moment? That question will point you in the right direction. But don't analyse, just watch. Focus your attention within. Feel the energy of the emotion. If there is no emotion present, take your attention more deeply into the inner energy field of your body. It is the doorway into being. And it's not about knowing the process. It's not about understanding the logic of what's going on. It's understanding the feelings. And as I am saying quite categorically these days, feelings don't lie to us. It's our thinking which lies to us. It makes us want to put things in a different perspective, so it's my way. And actually feelings tell us what's going on and what we may do. So it's better to listen to those and take a step back. Daily reflections, which is the AA daily for me. It says here, anger, a dubious luxury. If we were to live, we had to be free from anger. The grouch and the brainstorm are not for us. There may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for alcoholics these are poisons. From AA's big book, page 56. It goes on to say, dubious luxury. How often have I remembered those words? It's not just anger that's best left to non-alcoholics. I built a list including justifiable resentment, self-pity, judgmentalism, self-righteousness, false pride and false humility. I'm always surprised to read the actual quote. So well have the principles of the program been drummed into me that I keep thinking all of these defects are listed too. Thank God for, in my case, truth. I cannot afford them, or I surely would indulge in them. And that's the danger for me, to indulge in anger and resentment. And in truth, there is no point in being angry or resentful at people. It's about moving along, recognising those feelings and saying, I don't need these feelings today, because it's not really about me and I'm powerless over them. And I best get on with it. Anyway, coming on to Bill, as Bill sees it, very useful list. All about the individual's rights, page 134. We believe there isn't a fellowship on earth which devotes more care to its individual members. Surely there is none which more jealously guards the individual's right to think, talk and act as he wishes. No AA can compel another to do anything. Nobody can be punished or expelled. Our 12 steps to recovery are suggestions. The 12 traditions which guarantee AA's unity cannot contain not a single don't. They repeatedly say we ought to, but never you must. And he goes on to say, though it is traditional that our fellowship may not coerce anyone, let us not suppose even for an instant that we are not under constraint. Indeed, we are under enormous coercion, the kind that comes in bottles. Our former tyrant king alcohol always stands ready again to clutch us to him. Therefore, freedom from alcohol is the great must, and has to be achieved, else we go mad or die. And so true, and just gently on a daily basis, keeping an even keel, finding the balance, it is hugely rewarding for me.